Hey everyone, it's Christopher Swan, and welcome to this week's episode of Living Your Journey. Each week, I have this amazing opportunity to chat with people that love what they do in life. They understand their passions and their direction. Maybe it's a career path or the social impact that they're making. It's kind of like they're following their North Star, but they also know their story may change, and they understand that they're on their journey every day. On the show this week, I catch up with Rocky Walls. I've known Rocky for years now, but this is literally the first time we've ever sat down to talk about his world. So professionally, he's the co-founder of 12 Stars Media, a video production company based in Indianapolis. But don't think of him as the video guy. He's really the connector and communicator of the stories. He helps organizations and people tell their stories and their why, making information simple and meaningful. What I like about Rocky's story is his approach to life, how he connects family and work versus balancing them separately. Because he's a super busy guy. But it's not about this work-life balance that we've all heard of. It's about living a full life, enjoying what you do. I also enjoyed Rocky's perspective on running a successful company after 9+ years. He's still going strong with it, but he's also adopted this additional, even more meaningful goal of helping people realize their potential, or as he says, their IntelliKey. He'll explain all about that. This is a thoughtful conversation focused on the story of an entrepreneur, but really what's next on the journey. Okay, here's Rocky. Rocky Walls, it is so good to finally have you on the show. Welcome.
It is really good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I've been thinking about this for a while. I know we've touched base a little bit about getting you on the show, and it's interesting because we have this random hit and miss history through years of starting things like two ships in the night. We've been super connected, but I don't think we've really run into each other at conferences or anything. So I find it, I was really excited to have you on this because I thought, I could finally ask him all these questions I've been wondering.
That's great. I'm glad to hear that. I can't even imagine what they are. So I'm equally as excited to find out what questions you might have rolling around.
well, let me start with this. Okay, you are a dad to 3 young boys. You're married. I know family life is super important for you because clearly I stalk you online and see all the things that you guys are doing. Professionally, you've co-founded a video production company over 9 years ago. I know, are a speaker, you advise companies. When I saw all that stuff and I just follow what you do, you seem super busy. It's crazy busy. And I also know that you're every morning out running. So is it really true? Are you really that kind of crazy busy? Because I'm wondering about balance.
Oh man, balance, that word. I just sent a survey that I actually put together during one of my kids' soccer practice, shame on me, and sent it out to my team earlier this week about balance, about work-life balance, because we're making some policies this year, and I got some really great answers back. It has been a hot topic, this idea of balance, and I appreciate all of the kind of attention and recapping that you did there. To hear you describe it, yeah, I sound really busy.
Yes, you do.
but no, I don't think, generally speaking, I don't feel busy. No, I do feel balanced, although I don't like the concept of the term work-life balance.
Mm-hmm. I agree. That's actually why I didn't use that, because I don't believe that truly exists in the way that we used to talk about it.
Yeah, I love it. And we don't have to, we don't turn the whole show into that per se. I like harmony. I like the word harmony way better, because I kind of feel like everything, for me at least, and I have the luxury of, owning my own company and really driving the vision for that. And so I don't expect that everybody would feel exactly the same as I do. But everything from work, all the different facets of work, to my wellness and my family, they all support each other and they all harmonize rather than balance, which implies this idea that they're on separate sides of a scale, constantly competing. And so there's a lot to that, and I don't know how much you'd want to get into that, but there's a lot that I do to have that level of harmony in my life and be able to do a lot of things and have them all support each other.
Well, I think I'm just what I like about what you just said too was it's about harmony. And yeah, we're not going to deep dive into like the balance show, but I think harmony that's an important point to take out of that. So I think what I'm just hearing too is like, yeah, maybe you are busy or you do different things, but they blend. They're kind of equal pieces, or maybe not equal time or commitment, but it's all one package versus everything separated by how much time or effort or balance you provide.
Absolutely. And it's about attitude. I just came into a meeting this morning with a big group of creative individuals who are going to be endeavoring on a video production. And I told them, really without missing a beat, that I had a dream last night about how we would incorporate that particular producer's logo into the video. And I saw like a couple of heads turn sideways, and it's like, wait, what? You dreamt about this? And it's like, I could totally see how some people would think, not people on my team, but just in general, might think like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Like you think about work so much that you're having dreams about it? Like that's unhealthy. That seems crazy. But like truthfully, I don't feel that way at all. Because I also mix business and pleasure on my travel and with my vacations and with my family. My kids, take your kid to work day this year. My 8-year-old at the time, flew to Winnipeg with us on a video shoot.
Oh,
and he got to hang out.
That. Yeah, I saw that.
So yeah, we have the luxury of mixing a lot of different facets of life, and it works really well.
Well, let's take a step back. Would you, and I know this is probably a big question because I know you do a lot, but would you describe what you do professionally? So there's the video production, but I know you were speaking and advising, and there's these other pieces to it. Would you give us a brief description of what you do?
Sure. Yeah. What I do is really brief because I don't do much anymore. Things. I have this fantastic creative team, and we have all these cameras and things now, and I don't even know how to turn them on. As you and I joked a little bit before the recording that I'm not as tech savvy as you might think. But I personally, I love video. I really do. But I don't think of myself as a video professional. I think of myself as a communications professional, and even kind of deeper. If you think of it like those little Russian dolls, that you take one of them apart, and then there's another little one inside, and then another one, and another one. If you take 2 or 3 layers, like down at the core, I have this characteristic, this personality trait that has gotten me into trouble in the past. But now that as I get older, I kind of learn to harness it, and it's all about. I've identified that I have a much higher propensity for identifying potential in things and seeing things for what they could be as opposed to what they are. Which we could get into, how that gets me into trouble with having to make sure that I don't come across as hypercritical or a perfectionist. But how this has translated into what I do now professionally, I find that there are these organizations that have really fantastic missions and passion for what they do. And video happens to be a great channel for communicating that. Mm-hmm. But it's very, very frequently out of reach for folks. And there could be any number of reasons for that. It might be technology. It might be an issue of not understanding how cameras work or whatever it may be. But really, more frequently at the highest level, maybe the first obstacle is this inability, because of what's right in front of us all the time, what we're living day in and day out within our organizations or the companies that we work in. We can't see the forest for the trees, and we miss our potential. And we can't tell sometimes the very best stories and the very best messages that we have. And I can come in oftentimes and help people see that. And that's kind of what I do. That's what I speak on a lot. And that's what I help organizations, what I help them do, because there's a lot of really, really cool stories. There's a big potential for our world right now that I want to help kind of bring into actuality.
So is that really like uncovering the narrative, uncovering the story and how it works and connects people? So is that kind of what you're aimed after, or that you naturally see?
Some of it, yeah. Some of it is the story. Some of it is even sorting through the why. Like why do you okay, you want to communicate this particular thing, but why? Why do you want to communicate that? And sometimes even more importantly, well, why does anybody care? And how do we build that bridge? And so, yeah, frequently it's a narrative, it's a storyline, or it's an opportunity to identify how do we get that information and communicate it in a way that's very, I guess, connective. We have our core belief at 12 Stars Media is that people need connections, and the best connections come from communication that's very real and very simple.
Yeah.
So real so people believe you, and simple so they can understand you.
You almost sound like not just a connector, but you personally sound like the translator as well. Like you're taking that idea, or whatever they're thinking, and you're uncovering the why. You're turning it into let's make this a real message and get to the core of what people need, and reach to them.
Yeah. It's a lot of questions. I ask a lot of questions. I listen a lot. I tell everybody that kind of works in similar capacities here at our organization. I tell them, one of the best things that you can do is just play dumb, like really, really like completely ignorant of what somebody's talking about, so that you just kind of force them to tell you everything, and every answer they give you isn't the real answer. You've got to let them dig deeper. You've got to encourage them to get further with you.
Rocky, I'm chuckling because you sound like a therapist now, but it's so true. I mean, that is so smart. But I was like, oh, it's like I'm sitting with my therapist. They keep asking questions. But that's really true. And I love that you kind of think that way, because you're really trying to uncover that. That's what I kind of meant by the translator. Let me ask this. Well, first I'll tell you, one of the reasons I really wanted to talk to you is because you have been running this video production company for so long. I've seen you guys grow. You clearly are doing something really right. Your output is interesting. You've done more. So it just, I think from the outside watching too, you just also seem successful. And I don't mean successful in the kind of the generic sense of, making lots of money and more clients. That's all great. But, you're on this route or this path, this entrepreneurial path that you've been for a long time. And that's a tough path for a lot of people. So my question for you is, how did that start with this like video production company? Like why that? Was that because you did love video so much, or maybe it is because you were this connector translator? I'm curious about that story.
Well, let me start at the beginning of the video production company. And then if you think it's interesting, we could dig back even just a little bit further, because the thread, if you pull it like a sweater, it actually starts much earlier. But when I married my wife in, make sure I get this right, in 2006.
We can dub in some other date if you get it wrong.
Yeah. This celebrated our 10th wedding anniversary.
That's right.
Just a couple of weeks ago, actually. So that's an easy one to remember right now. When I married my wife, I was in the middle of a job transition. I had left full-time ministry work, and then I didn't know what I wanted to do. And this was in 2006-ish, end of 2006, beginning of 2007, when the idea of starting a business or being an entrepreneur wasn't really cool yet, right? Like obviously people have been starting businesses for probably centuries or longer, but we've had like this big boom after the most recent recession. We had this big boom of entrepreneurialism, and this was right before that, right at the dawn of this recession. And so we didn't even know, and I'll get to who we is in a moment, but we didn't even know really what the word entrepreneur meant. So it wasn't glamorous at all. It was this, let's start a business. And there was like a question mark at the end of that, like we didn't even know what we were doing. It was kind of a, let's find out who might have use for some of our unique skills, and maybe some of them, if we're fortunate enough, would be willing to pay us for that. And so my wife's younger brother, who at the time was 16 years old and was a brilliant homeschool student, we both had a knack for capturing and communicating video content. And so that's kind of what we said. We said, wow, we've got probably other skills, but this is something that we both really, really enjoy and we're pretty good at. And so we started offering these services to folks. And I tell people that every year we've had a theme, and over the last 2 or 3 years, maybe even 4, we've known what the theme was ahead of time. But for the first few years, we didn't. We didn't actually know what the theme for the year was until after the year was over, and we could look back and we could say, oh, that's what happened. And our first year was our year of doing anything for anybody.
Wait, was that a conscious theme, or just because it was that question mark at the end of your start a business?
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. It was very much finding out at the end of that year, oh gosh, we did anything for anybody, didn't we? And it included recording your wedding video. It included taking your cardboard box full of VHS tapes and transferring them to DVD for you to preserve those precious family memories. And I don't mean to mock any of this, because every one of those things are perfectly fine services to provide to people. But we did it all. And our second year became the year of doing certain things for anybody. And then finally our third year, certain things for certain people, as we started to narrow our focus. But yeah, at the beginning we were doing all kinds of things that were video related, or sometimes even just very loosely video related.
That doesn't surprise me at all, actually. A lot of photographers that I've talked to, or that are my friends, that are doing this for a living, they all usually start with weddings, or they start somewhere, a mitzvah or something smaller that's family oriented, because you got to start somewhere. I think, what you just described, you described hustle before it was called hustle. Like you're doing stuff, you're getting it done, whatever you needed to get done.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And fortunately, we've been very fortunate that that time is kind of over for us, although we certainly still hustle, but the time of evaluating every single few $100 financial decision, that was very, very prevalent. That was I remember one of our first conversations about whether could we really afford to pay $250 a month to share the rent of this one particular office space that we so desperately wanted to move into. And that was like a gut-wrenching decision. Yeah. And so, it was this hustle. Now we hustle in different ways now.
Sure.
But yeah, it was definitely an interesting time.
So, and it was this video piece though, was it the storytelling aspect? Was it the video? Because you had these skills. I'm getting your wife's younger brother had some of these skills too, but like, why video for you? I'm curious if it was just that thread of connector communication, or like it was a calling. That's what I guess I'm getting at.
Yeah, that's pulling the thread a little further back, and that's the thing, is because Zach, my co-founder, has always been and probably will always be the much more technical and operational component to our pair, and he leads our operations now, and he's very, very good at it. And he was always the one to say, when I come into the office and I say, hey, guess what? I told these folks that we could do this, and they're willing to pay for it. And then I say, we can do it, right? And he's of course left holding the bag and trying to figure out how to do it. For me, the technical aspect of producing a video or using any of those kinds of skills has always been and will always be fairly limited. It is that thread of communication and connecting that's there. And so when you take a step back and you look at why did I go into ministry, and why did I want to connect people and meet with them regularly and listen to their challenges and help them work through those things. Why did I ultimately, really interestingly, why did I go to school at Purdue and study molecular biology? Well, ultimately, I was even able to trace this all the way back, and this is where it gets really fun. I asked myself that, like, why in the world am I here? Why am I studying this very intricate science? Which I do have. I have a bit of a math brain and a science brain. I really like that, but I would never be happy in a career devoted to it. And so I asked myself, why? Why did I think that was what I wanted to do, though? Mm-hmm. And I trace it all the way back to when I was in high school. I took every math and science class we had. And in this one particular class, regularly we took this field trip to listen to a presenter talk about the most advanced updates and advancements, medical and health related advancements in cytology and biotechnology. And this man, his name was Sam Ryan. I can still remember his name, and I can still remember how he sounded when he presented, because he presented this content, these cytology and biotechnology updates with such passion, such delivery that, I mean, I don't care who you were. I don't care if you were flunking that class. You got chills up your spine, because he would do things in a presentation style. Like he would say, can you imagine the day when we can take, and I'm going to butcher this because, it's been 15 years since I've even thought about these kinds of things. But, he would say, can you imagine the day when we could take these stem cells and create this and save this person's life because we do this? And then he'd look at his watch and he'd say, actually, that just happened on the West Coast at 10:30 this morning when Dr. such and such, and you were like, oh my gosh, mind blown, right?
Totally.
And I realized, though, here's the thing that's crazy. I realize now it wasn't really the biology that I was interested in. It was the way this guy presented it, right? Mm-hmm. I started off on a path in school based kind of solely on how jazzed I was about the way somebody took a message and bottled it up in an inspiring way, which is, I mean, you look back now and you're like, oh, duh, hindsight's 2020. That's what I do. That's what I do now. I take all of these messages, anything from, how to keep technicians safe when they're changing the turbines on nuclear power generators, or what kind of breed of pig is best suited for traditional old world charcuterie, and it's like, I don't know anything about any of this, but boy, I can help you really, really inspire people with that story, because it's cool, and it's got passion behind it, and it matters to people.
Yeah, and you can reflect back on how you felt about that, and now know that you bring that to life for others by translating and telling that story and finding the why. Yeah, I love that. It's interesting that through that path, though, you kind of discovered more of the things that you're really more naturally, connected with, even though it may have taken you a while to get there. I think sometimes clues are in front of us that we may not see because we're so focused on what we're doing, but maybe we're not open enough to, to accept, like, oh, it's this, or we're not in the know yet. Yeah.
It's right under our nose very frequently.
That's great. I love that, though. I love how you kind of pulled that together, especially when you already had a talent or you had that math brain part of it. I want to jump a little bit, just because I've been wondering about this for a while. I'm going to jump a little bit forward. This is like a couple years ago or maybe a year ago. I'm going to dive into some of the stuff you guys do at work, because what I think is so fascinating about, so you run this video production company and you do these other elements of work as well, But here's something I thought is really interesting is a small organization that I'm leading to, like team offsites or things that you guys do as an organization, because I think this is something that's about you and the way that you and Zach like to lead. I remember you guys took a team offsite to Disney World, and in fact, the team was filming a lot of it as you went, and then created some little short, vignettes afterwards. Could you talk a little bit about like this kind of the world that you're creating, or why it's important to you to do things like that with the people surrounded around you?
Yeah, let me come up with a better answer than we just really like going to Disney World,
Well,
and
I know you do. I know you're a big Disney
take
guy.
everybody with us. Okay, so remember I was saying that we have a theme for every year, and
Yeah.
2015. So this was at the beginning of 2015 when we took that trip. 2015's theme was to be the best at what we do, and we had up until that point a smaller team. We had a big growth year in 2015, and we wanted to show folks an example of the best. Like, what does it mean to be the best at what you do? And I think few people would argue the point that Walt Disney World specifically is, they're a great example of being the best in the theme park industry, for example, or customer service, or there's all kinds of things that they're very, very good at. And I wanted them to see that firsthand and experience it, and I wanted them to experience it together. And so we had very loosely structured days where we would kind of give them a task, and we would say, while you're out enjoying some snacks and some rides and all these different things that you might do with your coworkers, your friends, pay attention to this, and then we'll all get together for dinner and we'll talk about it too. So it was this idea that we really wanted to kick off the year with an example, an external example. We could shut the company down for a week and go just fully immerse in something that can inspire us to be the best at what we do. And so there's all kinds of other little features and little
Sure.
vignettes that come out of that, but that was the heart of it.
Well, I kind of brought that up. First of all, I thought it was great and fun, and I loved all the stuff that you guys did. But I just wondered a little bit about the why, not just the why of like the theme, but also, you're the connector, the translator, the storyteller. These things, that you're connecting, and we do a lot of this kind of work to fulfill ourselves as well. That's why a lot of people run their own business. And I'm wondering a little bit about the why of the team, and how does that play into your why? If you're this kind of communicator and connector, does it, is there a part of the why there for you to work with your teams and help them grow or see things in new ways?
Absolutely. I meet with a lot of other entrepreneurs pretty regularly, and some in the video business, and I have to share. I have to be very honest with my experience and my history, and I have to share with them that I determined pretty quickly, really by the end of year 2 or beginning of year 3, as I explained it in those themes that I offered up to you, that I'm not, like I said, a video professional. I very quickly realized that I'm better suited to help the people in my organization reach their potential. And the same, not really any different than I do with anybody that we work with, anybody that would hire us. And so I do that very, very, very frequently. We have for a 20-person company, and really we developed this program when we were less than a dozen. We have a very robust professional development plan that we built from the ground up, and the idea of really getting to know each and every one of these folks and understanding their goals and understanding their passions. We do goal boards as a team every year. We get a bunch of magazines and we all cut pictures and phrases out, and we put them all together on big poster boards. And I'm looking at several of them. I can see several of them right here from where I'm sitting. I can look out the phone booth and see them. And and I can get to know these folks and really help them get on a path where they can realize that potential that I see in them and that others I know see in them. And so, yeah, it's, I'm kind of getting, a little emotional now, but it's like, that's such an important part now of what I do. I don't spend nearly as much time thinking about making a video as I do this team and helping them realize their potential. So taking them to Disney was just a part of that. It was like, how do we get to know these folks and understand their kind of what makes them tick and who they are and how they can grow.
Do you ever think back, like, just because it's been over 9 years, because it's so interesting, Rocky, too. Like, I'm going to step back. Like a couple of years ago, before 2015, before you had that big growth, you guys were in a little bit different place, obviously doing a lot of the same stuff, but now you've had this big growth and you're probably tackling more. And when you started in 2009 and you were really hustling like with VHS tapes and transfers, by the way, all I can visualize is like this corner video store, like from the 80s. That's all I'm thinking of. But
I like that. Keep that vision. That's actually right? Better than what we were. So I like that.
So, I think about this as you started off kind of like with nothing. You guys just had the wits about you, some skills, you hustled. And
significant debt. Don't forget significant debt.
I'm so glad you said that, because I think people just don't think about that kind of stuff. Like when you start off, it's hard, and there's a lot of stuff you were like putting up for. So okay, you did all that, and then you flash forward 9+ years later, and you take trips to Disney World with your team. You have these goal boards, you have mood boards, you have all these things. Do you ever look back and just say, like, holy crow, what have we done? It's so great. Or who knew I'd be here? Or, like, did you know you were going to be in this path? Because what I'm curious about is, for people that are first starting out, I don't think they can think that so far in advance about those things. Or maybe they have this delusional grandeur of what it will be. But what do you think about when you flash back? Did you know?
No, definitely not. And I think it's okay though to acknowledge that some people may, and everybody's a little different. So, like I was explaining, I have when I meet with other entrepreneurs, for example, I have to help them understand my perspective. Like one of the pieces of advice I give is, this is probably the best piece of advice and the worst piece of advice I could give you. Get a co-founder. Get a co-founder that is like your exact opposite, so that you can support each other. But you know what? Like, Zach and I are best friends. He's my wife's brother. We've been operating a business for close to 10 years now, and he lives next door to me with his wife. And, so it's like, I say that's the worst piece of advice because it's incredibly unlikely, and I'm perfectly willing to acknowledge that very many people would be able to, you know what I mean? Like that's
not the norm.
Yeah, that's not the norm. But I couldn't have done it any other way. He couldn't have done it any other way. And so I have to acknowledge that not everybody's going to be like that. And some people will probably they'll map out a trajectory. They'll say, this is where I'm going to be and this is what I'm going to do. And you know what? Like a lot of people do that and then they do it. They get there. And some people do it, like you said, and they have these, kind of delusions of grandeur or even just a plan in general, and then it doesn't work. And that's, that's okay too, as long as you're flexible and you don't let it, totally crush your spirit. But we didn't have any of that. And that's not the right way, but it was our way, and it continues to be our way. Let's see, 5 years ago, maybe, if you asked us, how many people will you have on our team? How many videos will you make in a year? Where will you travel to? We wouldn't have even come 10% of what we are right now. Not because we didn't believe in ourselves, but just because we had no idea, like you said, what that would look like. Like that's such a foreign concept to us at that point. And so everything that we've done very, very organically and very naturally. And we've never taken on any long-term debt as a business. We've never taken on any investment from outside investors. And so everything, we've kind of just reinvested what our clients invest in us, and that's been very, I think, healthy for us. We call this, we kind of acknowledge that this is a lifestyle business for us. We're not trying to sell what we do as a whole. We're not trying to sell a company. We're not trying to get investors, and so other people do, and that's fine for them. For us, we like the lifestyle. We like to be able to take, oh gosh, we've got $30,000 that we could allocate toward taking the team to Disney World. Like, let's do it, because we looked at it and we said, if we come back and even just a member of our team is so inspired that, that we close a deal based on their level of inspiration or their level of aspiration for a new kind of project, we'll pay for it. We'll pay for it multiple times over. So that's kind of how we've grown it, and very little of it has been planned more than 6 months to a year in advance.
I think those are such important points, because I think that there isn't one plan for every business or the way you grow it. And I think an important thing I just heard too was this lifestyle, because it's, you weren't aiming to, I think in the last, 5, maybe plus years, there's a lot of these companies that start off and individuals they want to start up something, get it really great so they can sell it to Google or sell it to somebody. And that's their goal. The goal isn't to create this great company and do these things. Yeah, they want a company that is worthwhile to somebody else. But I think what's really interesting is it speaks to who you are and what you want to do, and obviously to Zach as well. It's a lifestyle company. You guys are doing great work and you're being true to yourself, but it's not about the end of the story isn't the giant pot of gold. And I think that's so important for people to think about and remember when they're thinking about, what do I want to do with myself? Where are my passions? What's my purpose? It's, what is that end result for you that's going to make you happy?
Absolutely. It kind of brings it back a little bit full circle to that realization of potential. And for us, that's the realization of potential. That's the, I love that word, entelechy. That's the word from Aristotle. Actually, I can't remember the particular piece, but one of the old writings of Aristotle, he uses the word entelechy, and that was first time it was used, I believe, and it means I wish that it was used more often, and I keep doing this. I do this all the time. Christopher, I at the beginning of my sessions, my presentations, most of the time I bring up this word entelechy, and nobody ever knows.
I didn't know it either. I was like, I haven't heard that.
I haven't had anybody raise their hand, and it's a beautiful word because it means the realization of potential. It's this idea that potential is such a great thing, but it's really nothing if it's not realized, if it's not actualized. And so you could read an incredible book full of helpful information that could change your life. But if you don't apply it, if entelechy isn't achieved, nothing really happens. You don't get anywhere. You don't do anything. You just read a book. And so for us, that's what we're doing. We're realizing our potential. Our potential is, like you said, it's not a pot of gold. For others, it may very well be, and that's totally fine. But for us, it's something deeper than that. It's connecting people, and it's changing our world to make it a better place. And I know that can sound kind of hokey, but we can do that because we're working with all these people with incredible stories. Some of them very emotional, some of them very fun, some of them certainly, arguably less important than others, but all really great stories and really great messages and connections to answers and connections to other people and connections to things that inspire us. All of that adds up to some really great stuff, some good feelings. And sure, there's money involved, and we have to make money. I we've talked about it. I'm a huge fan of Walt Disney, both the the company, the business of Walt Disney, but also the man, Walt Disney, and that was his attitude. Money didn't excite him, or so he said. He used money to be able to achieve the things that he wanted to achieve, and you could see that in his life. It seemed like every time they made a dollar, they just spent that dollar and that much more on the next project, whether it was Snow White or Disneyland or Mary Poppins or acquiring the land in Florida for Disney World. It was always, what's the next thing? What's the next potential we can realize?
Absolutely. I love that, by the way, you clearly have read his books. The items that you just mentioned, I'm like, that's exactly it. Working for the Walt Disney Company for so many years, I know all those milestones. So that's smart. It's just fun note. So let me ask this question then, if for folks that maybe haven't realized their potential, and people can maybe be exposed to a self-help book or some kind of speaker or something. But what's a tangible piece of advice you'd give somebody to say, not just the application, I guess, of it, but how to realize that potential? What do they do next to even maybe change their mindset or get involved?
Yeah, I know. There's a lot of small things, and for everybody, it's going to be a little different. But some of the things, I think the real terrible irony of it is it goes back again to that whole thing that it's probably right in front of your nose. It's simple things. It's usually the answers to big questions like that are not always on the top of a mountain, and in deep Zen state. Unfortunately, I think that's an excuse that we use to keep ourselves stuck in places that we're comfortable a lot of the time. And unlocking the next level for you, for anyone, maybe as simple as getting up just a little bit earlier and getting a nice blank notebook out and just writing down some thoughts, some ideas. What am I doing today? And then why? Why am I doing that? And then why? Why am I doing that? Why do I feel that way? Just journaling like crazy in the morning or at night before you go to bed, and just making sure to put those questions in a place where they can be addressed. I have a friend, actually, we have a mutual friend, Chuck. Chuck Goes.
Yeah, of course.
He was telling me not too long ago, and it just kind of stuck out to me and sunk in, and I've thought about it a lot since then. That I don't know if he does it on a very strict regimen, but he said, I just set aside like half an hour every day just to think. And I'm like, well, think about what? And he's like, no, just to think, man. Like just let my mind go wherever it's going to go, so that I can process and think. And I don't think people do that enough. I don't think we don't journal. We don't address those issues of what really matters often enough. I'm reading a great book right now. I really, really enjoy it. And I typically wait to recommend a book until I've read the whole thing. But because of the timing of this interview, and I think so highly of the first half that I've read so far, I'd recommend Essentialism. The book is simply called Essentialism. And I really liked at the beginning how the author talked about how we are faced with so many more decisions today than we've ever been faced with in the past. There's now this term psychologists have coined or phenomenon called decision fatigue, which basically states that the more decisions we have to make, the lower the integrity of each of those decisions. It's proportional. And so, I probably wouldn't have to rattle through very many questions before I just get, so many yeses. If we were, in a room with a live audience here,
Right.
people would have whiplash. They'd be nodding their heads so hard that it's like, do you feel like you've got to make too many decisions in a day? Do you feel like you've got too much going on every day? Do you feel like, you start your day with a to-do list and then at the end of the day, it's actually longer? Like, I think most of us feel that way. But we don't have to. We can start little by little, making decisions about what's really essential, what matters the most, and finding your purpose and making sure that you're doing everything you can to align to that. I mean, my goodness, what higher priority is there ultimately?
Absolutely. It's so interesting. It's I think it was my episode with Melanie Sealis. She and I chatted about this decision fatigue. It's interesting you brought it up because it really hit home for the both of us. She had just she lives in near Silicon Valley, and she opened up a hair salon, and it was brand new. And I had chatted with her by maybe 2 months into it or something, and she was exhausted from every little decision she had to make. And she had talked about, I just didn't realize it was going to be like that. And we had talked through, even to the point of, and this is a different scenario, but it's, do we have to make every decision? Can you delegate pieces of that? Or maybe get out of the way of that, only focus on the things that really matter and let the other things go. And because I was having a similar experience when I was starting the show. I didn't know anything about podcasting. And I was like, which mic do I buy? Which boom arm do I buy? How do I record them? And everybody had an opinion. So it's interesting you talk about that. Those were just small little scenarios of it, but I could see it every day. And then I recently read this article that I thought was smart. It was about managing your time, because there's always so many things we want to do, and decisions are part of that day. And this article had mentioned, make the biggest decisions or the most creative things you need to do first thing in the day. And the more systematic, or maybe robotic things that you need to do toward the end of the day, because you're fatigued by that point. And it just helped me kind of think, when you talked about this, Rocky, that there is a way to balance some of that out, and realize what is essential and also when to focus on it. And it's been, I gotta tell you, that's even just, I'm not doing it totally, and I've not read that book, but it's even me doing a little bit of this has really helped me as I think about, where do I want to be next? What do I want to do next? Yeah.
And that's such a huge key, is that I think, and when I say it, a listener is going to be like, well, yeah, duh. But I challenge, I challenge anybody to be honest with yourself, though. Really, do you realize that it's not like a light switch? It's not a destination. It's a every day, every hour, maybe even every minute journey. It's a decision after decision after decision, and you're not going to get to a place where, all of a sudden I know what my purpose is, and I can live without having any stress or any worry about whether or not I'm fulfilling that purpose. I tell people, I've had the pleasure of speaking to 300 eighth graders at a time during career days at local middle schools here.
I love that.
It's a real hoot. It's a real hoot. And I tell them without hesitation, find your purpose right now, and be completely okay with the fact that it might change tomorrow, or it might change in a week or a month or a year. It is okay, but don't kid yourself. Don't deny yourself the ability to find purpose only because you're afraid to commit to something, only because you're afraid to, or you're afraid it might change, you're afraid it might be wrong. Because you're right. I heard, what you said, that it kind of inspired me down that particular track, was that, you're not doing it all the way. Well, nobody's ever going to do it all the way. What does that even mean? We can't do anything all the way, ever, because it's going to change. Our needs are going to change. Yep. The system's going to change. I have all kinds of systems for, planning out my days and balancing, my life, or harmonizing, like we talked about earlier, my life. But they haven't been the same for a month at a time, if ever. I think they're always changing and fluctuating and getting better.
Yeah, absolutely. And probably the two things I'd probably end with that, and where you talk about IntelliKey, and something that's been a real driver for me is about being intentional, really being intentional with what you're doing. Because I think that equals also when you're truly intentional to say, I'm not going to do that, I'm not going to focus on that, that helps you lead you to the path of where you want to go. And I think that turns into be a really important point when you're looking at what you want to be. And the other thing, we actually wrote an article about this on our website that is about your purpose and your passions can evolve, and it's perfectly normal. And in fact, you just have to be aware of it, and then and go with them. And I think the older, especially age and experience, that happens, right? Why am I hosting this show when 3 years ago or so, I was heavy into communications and marketing, but I had this evolution myself, this change. So I kind of think those are super important. I want to change gears just a little bit as we're getting kind of wrapping up to time. Something I have really been wondering myself just personally about things that you do, because you guys have grown and what you're doing. So this is not so much 12 Stars Media. It's more about Rocky, because I know you've moved into speaking more and advising and this kind of IntelliKey connection piece. But what keeps you inspired? What's something, that kind of keeps you going? Because it's been 9+ years. Is this why you've moved into speaking or moved into other aspects of what you're doing?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question, because before you had even finished it, several things kind of passed through my mind. I was like, well, gosh, I'm inspired by everything. I'm getting up and I'm going on these runs in the morning, and as I'm running, I'm thinking of all this stuff that kind of just ignites all the different ideas that I have and passions. And then of course my family with my kids and my wife and and our work. I think that's a tough question. That's probably the toughest one that you've asked. So, go ahead.
I was
See if you can ask it.
Well, let me ask a smaller version of it first, and then we'll go into the bigger one. So, I don't ask this question often, but I think it really makes sense for you because you're in communication and storytelling world. And so, instead of thinking about that first question of what kind of inspires you to keep going or doing more in your business and what that looks like, maybe tell me about something that's currently influencing your work or that you're loving. So that could be like a book or a show or a person. Like for example, Stranger Things was huge on Netflix for a long time and was really inspiring people. And as that's just a show and entertainment, but still ideas came out of it. Good example is, as that came out, a week later, I found, I think, at least 20 tracks of music on SoundCloud that musicians were inspired by the opening credits of that show, inspired them to create and write their own songs. So the question for you is there something that you're consuming right now that you're really enjoying that's kind of helping you inspire some fun, creative ideas or connections?
Sure. Well, like I said, the book that I'm in the middle of at the moment. I'm actually reading it. I'm actually listening to it while I'm running, and reading it with my wife in the evening as well. Essentialism, and I think that's where the bridge gets built, because it is a smaller thing. It's this idea that I want to continue inspiring what I would call harmony with our team. And I've been working on that myself, and in my personal diligence with getting up and planning my days and making those lists and managing my time carefully, but then also applying that to our company and our organization as a whole, to think about making sure that the projects that we take on and the work that we do is essential and is really important. And so what that ends up doing then is kind of by default, it eliminates a whole bunch of non-essential things. And what I have found, and this I think goes back all the way maybe to your bigger question too. Then I think right now the world is ripe for people to really embrace the need for us to be better, for us to change and be better. And that, you could think about all different applications of that. And I'm not even going to get into all of them, but, or even some of them, but I look at, maybe the millennials, and I guess I have some hope that, that maybe they'll be able to look at a lot of the mistakes that the generation before them and the generation before that has made about, how we treat our world, the resources that we use, the way that we treat each other, and we can feel the need to change that and to be better. And when I look back at work that we've done, for example, as a video production company, there are a lot of things that we've done that have been good, but not all of them, not many of them, when you really get down to it, have had that kind of effect. And I think that's where we're headed. I think that's where 12 Stars Media is headed, and I think that's where the world in general is headed. And I hope, it's like things trend, right? It's like, organic, grass-fed, cage-free
right.
eggs or whatever, trends, right? And I hope that the idea of people really taking ownership and feeling the need for us to make the world better, I hope it's not a trend. But I kind of feel like it's about to be something that's much more popularized than it has been in the last 10, 15 years. And maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm just being awakened to it because I'm starting to pay attention to things that matter a lot more. But I think it's not just me. I think it's more than that. I think it's more people. I think more people are awakening to the fact that we've got a lot of potential. We got a lot of the world has a lot of potential. The people, all of us, has a lot of potential, and we can
absolutely
realize it. So,
and I love what a great answer to that bigger question, just about doing more. And there's a podcast that I probably have mentioned it a couple times on the show. I listen to it, and it Sounds Good with Brandon Harvey. And Brandon is this younger millennial that, and he's been doing this for a while, just not on a podcast. And now he's doing this in a very different format. He was a storyteller, a photographer. And he goes around and interviews people every week about the positive things that they're doing in the world. And he finds these folks online that are doing really big positive things. And sometimes it's just stuff for themselves. But it's so positive. They're having such a great impact. So if you haven't heard that, I think it might be a little bit refreshing to hear a little bit about that. But I bring him up because I think it's just he's one example of all these wonderful people. I think that does to me feel like there's this, I don't know, this mass that's gaining of doing more because we're seeing so many things that could be better, that we could treat each other better, and the world could be better. So I frankly love that. If that's where you guys are heading, I love those sorts of things. That's kind of why I started this show as well, because I wanted to help people kind of discover and hear different perspectives from different people to hear about purpose and passion and maybe a little bit of advice. So that's awesome. I love it.
I love it too, and I'm so glad that you had an example ready, because as soon as I finished my thought, I was thinking to myself, you know what I needed? I need a good example of what I'm talking about, because I think I kind of sound like this, blubbering idiot. And that's it. You're exactly. I mean, I'm glad that all my rambling there meant enough, or you felt you understood it enough to come up with that fantastic example, because that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, and it speaks so closely to me, Rocky, that is why I am looking to do these sorts of things as well, because First of all, it's such a selfish thing too, because don't we feel good when we can participate in that? Because we can see how it affects others, and it's such a wonderful thing. And there's so much good stuff to do in it. Gosh, it's a fun thing to connect with people that want to do it as well. So absolutely. So definitely a plug for Brandon. Go check him out. Some good stuff. Well, as we wrap up, let me just ask this one last question, which is, if people do want to get a hold of you, follow along, where's the best places to follow you, get in touch, and maybe 12 Stars Media?
Yeah. So I am very fortunate that I have this name, Rocky Walls, and just like it sounds, ROCKYWALLS. And when all the new social media channels come out, I usually don't have to compete very hard for my name. So I'm on Twitter, Rocky Walls. I'm on Instagram, Rocky Walls. I'm on LinkedIn, Rocky Walls. So, and I'm very, very active in all those places, and I love connecting with people kind of wherever they're at. Since obviously I'm in a visual business, Instagram and Twitter, and to some extent YouTube, although most of our work goes on our on our business sites, and 12 Stars Media, 12 stars plural media.com is our website. And then obviously our Twitter handles and all that are there too.
And I'd also we'll list it all. I'll give a little bit of plug too for 12 Stars. You guys are producing these little vignettes and fun videos and how-tos and behind the scenes. So I'd say that, for anybody listening to, if you want to kind of see some of that work and the fun, or even be educated in the world of video, that within your sites for 12 Stars Media, you guys are producing a lot of different fun content that people can absorb.
Absolutely. We really enjoy that. We were very fortunate to start a business at the beginning of really that boom of the social internet. So that's kind of how we've grown it. We largely have marketed and grown through telling stories and through giving examples of the kinds of things that we do, and helping inspire others to do the same. So yeah, we really enjoy that, and we always appreciate it when folks check it out and engage with it and chime in and let us know if there's anything missing or any ideas or questions you have.
Absolutely. And I have to say that because I've followed along quite a long time, and I've actually learned a couple things from some of the behind the scenes stuff. So super helpful. Well, Rocky, this has been great. Thank you for taking the time and kind of walking us through part of your story and a little bit about where you're going and where you started. I think it's a nice, refreshing story that we haven't heard really on the show yet, just because you've been doing something for so long and you've gone from entrepreneur, I think, to actually grown into something else even. So again, thank you.
Thank you for having me. I really, really enjoyed it, and looking forward to maybe hearing it myself and criticizing the way I sound, and maybe even more importantly, hearing from anybody who listens and is inspired.
Now, over to you. Any thoughts or questions you'd like to share? Seriously, do you have any questions you'd like to ask me or the guest? We'll answer them and even get the guest to help us. So send us a message, use our Facebook page and email us there, or post a comment or question on the page, or tweet us at accidental.info using hashtag LivingYourJourney. You can find out more about all the guests, links to their sites and social channels, and even bonus content all at accidentalinformation.com. Now, a couple favors. Go subscribe to the show and you'll be the first to get the download before everyone else. Also, take just a couple moments and head over to the show in iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts and give us a quick review. Quick, easy, and I would love it. This totally supports us, and it helps me bring in interesting guests each week and keeps the show going. Also, I love to read them and see what you guys are really thinking. Thanks for joining the conversation, and remember, Living Your Journey is available every Tuesday. Until next week.